I'm always going on about how you'll have more loss-making customers than you realise, and how to find those loss-making customers. Once you know who they are, it's great because you can decide what you want to do about it. And usually I would put the prices up, because either you'll make some profit from them finally, or they'll leave and you won't be making a loss on them anymore. So you win either way if you put the price up. But this video is about how do you find those loss-making customers. And the reason we have more loss-making customers than we realise is that we have more costs than we realise. So obviously you've got your direct costs, and these are basically materials and labour. And we usually know how many hours it takes to make a particular product, and we usually know what the material is that we've had to buy for that product. And if it's a service, then obviously it's only the labour. But we know what it's costing to deliver that. And most places have a gross profit of, 40, 50, 60%. So about half of the sale price has gone in terms of the material and labour. And it's easy to think that we're making 50% profit, but we're not, because we have the indirect costs, the fixed costs. And these are called indirect because it's quite hard to apportion them to an exact product. So in the fixed costs, we've got things like the buildings, the rent, or we've got the heating, we've got the cost of the IT systems, which are significant these days. We've got management, and we've got quality control systems, production planning, we've got HR, marketing, and marketing's a significant expense nowadays. You've even got the cost of me doing the occasional training course. So you've got all these other costs, which we've somehow got to apportion across everything. And quite often when we sell something for 100, 50 goes on here and 40 goes on here, and we end up with only 10% of our actual profit. And you can see how if this 40 is actually 50, then all the profit's gone. So how do you really work out the profitability of every product? And this is difficult, but I'm going to show you a way to do it that just requires a spreadsheet. And I've got a spreadsheet here that I'm going to cheat. I'm going to use the figures from my spreadsheet, but I'm going to write them up on here, because I think rather than show you a spreadsheet, which is a bit dry, I'm going to write them on here and you'll be able to see what I mean. So let's imagine that you're making 8 different products. In fact, I've got 9 different products here. So we'll call them products 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay, I could have done an example with just 2 and it would have been quicker, but I want it to feel real. This is the kind of thing you might really do. So these are going to be product lines. So you might be making lawn mowers and you might be making hedge cutting machines, and so that would be lawn mowers, that would be hedge cutters. But it might be that you're manufacturing something, but you're also maintaining it. That would be a second product line or a service. You might be going out and using them as a subcontractor. And these would all be different things that you do. So that's what I mean by your product lines. So for me, it might be courses in project management and time management and negotiating, but it might be online courses and taught courses and Zoom courses. And I might want to work out the profitability of each of those things. So this is whatever you're selling. It could be services, it could be products, it could be a mixture. So let's imagine you're doing that. And the first thing that we want to get is the turnover, the income. I don't think there's any difference between income and turnover. So it's the money coming in from what you've sold. So let's just imagine that we've got this much coming in. Now this might be millions of pounds or thousands of pounds or whatever, but let's just call it 100, 300, 150. So I've just got some fairly random numbers there, and you can see that product line number 7 is bringing in quite a lot of money, 600. That might be that we're selling loads of little things. It might be that we're just selling something that's very profitable, but whatever. We've got lots of money coming in from that. We've not got very much money coming in for number 6. Although, of course, that could be a very profitable small thing. We don't know. And then, as I mentioned just now, it's fairly easy to get figures for the direct cost of these, the materials and the labour. So let's suppose the numbers for the direct cost are as follows. So you can see from here, I've made them a bit random, but I've made some of them half, some of them less than half, some of them more than half. of the income, because that's probably how it would be. And of course, from this, we can add up the total and we can see how much our direct costs are. 940 in this case, compared to a turnover of 220. So we can already see our gross profit there, which looks pretty good. And we can see whether that number looks right, because we should know the total money we've spent on materials and the total money we've spent on direct labour. The wage costs of our factory or our people who go out and provide a service. So we would know whether that was right, and usually those numbers are right. Accountants get these numbers from somewhere, I don't know where. But the problem is this next column. This is the interesting column. So let's suppose that we guess what the fixed costs are. So we say, for example, that I reckon we got 100 coming in for product line number 1. The direct costs are 50, and I think there's another 20 that is costing us. So there's a little bit of management time required, a little bit of IT and heating, space in the factory, etc. It's a bit of a guess, but that's how we're going to apportion that. And let's just go down and apportion all the others according to how we feel about how difficult or easy these product lines are to manage and deliver. So let's say we've got 70 for this one, 20, 160, 120. So we're apportioning these by gut feel, and you'd be typing this into a spreadsheet. That's how you do it. You'd never do it on a whiteboard in real life. So now we can add up all the fixed costs and we can see that they come to 740. But more interesting than that, we can look at each product and see whether it's profitable. So we can see we've got 100 coming in, we've got 70 going out, so we're making plus 30. So this is the actual net profit on that product line. Now there's a bit about tax and things like that, but let's not worry too much about that. So that's on plus 30. And you can see this one's made 80. So this one's great. We've had 300, we've only cost those, so 80. We've got 300 coming in, it's only cost us 220, so we've made 80. This one's only made 30. This one's made 140. Oh dear, this one has lost 20. You can see we had 200 coming in, but our costs have been 100 and 120, which is 220. So we've lost money on that one. And then this one's made plus 10, plus 250. That's where most of our profits come from. Plus 10. And this final one, minus 10, we've lost money. So already we've identified 2 money-losing product lines, and we've got to ask ourselves, do we want to carry on doing numbers 5 and numbers 9? Now, there may be a reason why we do. Maybe they're strategic. Maybe if we do this one, it means that we also sell this one, which is very profitable, or something. But we would certainly want to ask the question of, should we put the price up for these ones? But the really important thing that I want to get to, the reason I'm doing all of this to show you, is that if we add up this column and it comes to 740, and we know that our total costs, if our estimates were right, would be 1680. And we know, therefore, that in theory, we would expect that we've got 2,200 coming in, we've paid 1680 out, so we know that our total costs should be 2200 minus 1680, which is 520. But we know that we don't actually make that profit. In real life, we know that our costs must be higher than that, because we know that we've got this much coming in, and we know that our real profit is actually only 260. Right? That's what our profit actually is. So we know that this figure must be bigger than 740. We know that this actually must be 1,000. Okay? So at the end of the year, we absolutely know how much has come in. We know how much we've got left after we've paid all our costs. So we know that there's a total of 1,940 disappearing in here somewhere spread over these. We just don't know where. So what we need to do, we need to improve our estimates and go back through and put this extra 260 into here somewhere. So imagine that I did that. Imagine I went back through and said, that this isn't really 20, it's 40. And I think this probably isn't 70, it's 95. And you can watch the number ticking up here, and you just keep doing this till this reaches 1,000. So I think that's probably 55 instead of 20, and I think that's probably 200. Now you could just raise all these by the same percentage. You could just do that until you get the right total. But I think it'd be worth thinking a bit more about it than that and trying to think, well, maybe I was a bit optimistic and this has been quite a difficult job. It's taken quite a lot of management time. So I should probably put a bit more on this one and a bit less on this one, however you do it. So I'm going to say that that one should be 150. This one is 30 rather than 20. And this one's 120. And by fiddling with these enough, I can get the total to add up to 1,000. I think those numbers now will add up to 1,000. Okay, so that's great. So I've now got my totals correct and my total profit now is correct. But of course, the interesting thing that it does to the profit per item is it changes it quite a bit. Because you can see that this one, as the costs have gone up by 20, this one's only plus 10 now. Still worth doing. This one's gone up by 25. So this one has gone down to only plus 55. Still worth doing. But this one, you can see it's gone up by 35 and it was only on plus 30. This one is now on minus 5. The new numbers on my spreadsheet say I've got 150 coming in, 100 goes out on that, and another 55 goes out on my apportionment of fixed costs now. Had to go up to get the total correct. So that one has now become a problem. This one is still plus 100, so that's great. This one's actually got worse. It's now minus 50. We've really got to do something about number 5. This one has become 0 now. We've got 50 coming in, 20 going out, and another 30. So this one's become 0. So we need to do something about that one. Probably it's just breaking even. This one's still on plus 200, so that's great. This one's on minus 10. So that's now become loss-making. And this one's become worse. It was minus 10, it's now minus 40. So you can see we've discovered 2 more loss makers. We've discovered this one and we've discovered this one. And we did that by making sure that we've apportioned all of our costs, not just our optimistic cost apportionment that we were doing before. By the way, these numbers are actually fairly realistic because if you have a turnover of 2,200 and your net profit is 260, that's 12% net profit. That's pretty good. I think most companies would love to be making 12%. A lot of companies make half of that. They only make 6%. Some companies only make a quarter of it. They make 3% net profit. So imagine if these numbers were even tighter, it was closer, you'd get more loss makers appearing almost certainly in your list of products, and you need to know about those. And our gross profit 940, by the way, is 43%. So I think these numbers are reasonably realistic, but different industries have different normal averages, so you might want to adjust that slightly depending on the industry you're in. But the principle is, list all your products, put in the direct costs, have a go at apportioning the indirect costs, the overheads, see what's profitable, and then add up and see whether you did have the right number of overheads. And I guarantee you'll have numbers that are too small. You'll have missed some of your costs. Now, the final thing I want to say, which is really, really important, is that this was product lines, but you could also change that and you could make it customers. So you could do this whole thing again. Obviously, you could delegate it to somebody if you didn't want to, but it is fascinating. So you could do this for customers, and you could say that for customer number 1, how much money has that customer paid me for a variety of different services? What are the costs of those services? And also my fixed costs of dealing with that customer. How much management time? How much customer support have I had to do, for example? And so, depending on whether they were easy to deal with or a pain, you'd apportion more or less of your fixed costs. So for every customer, you'd put your income, you'd add it up, it should come to your total income. You might have a small section here for others for all the tiny stuff. But you'd add up all your customers, check the income looks right. You'd know your direct costs, which again you can check. And then you put the all-important overheads and then see which customers are profitable. And then you might have to tweak the overheads to make sure you get the right total, whether you do it the total for the overheads or whether you do your total costs, either way, because it doesn't really matter whether you're putting it on here or here, does it? But you need to somehow get a realistic estimate of the cost of every customer that adds up to your total costs. And then again, you can see which ones are loss-making. And I bet you find some surprises in there. And as I mentioned, the answer for the loss-making customers is almost certainly to put the price up. Even if they're strategic and you have to have them, they should still pay their way, shouldn't they? Pretty much. I would really question it when you say, well, we're making a loss on this job, but it's worth it strategically. I'd be very suspicious about that. It's an option. You're allowed it if you want, but I would question it. So there we are. That's my method. I hope that made sense. Do it for both your product lines and for your customers. Guarantee you'll find some useful stuff. Well done. You made it through my spreadsheet demo. I will see you again soon. Bye for now.